Hello, this week we'll be working on assignment 9. It is 9 out of 13 assignments, so we're just about close to being done. Now, if you look at the module for this week that ends April 12th, you have an overview, a PowerPoint, you have 2 videos about functions in general, then you have this pseudocode video. Then you can go ahead and submit the pseudocode. And then by the end of the week, you will need to submit the assignment. So I want to take this time to point out that it would be a really good idea if you clicked on this overview so you can see the different pages that you should read before working on the assignment. This is very important information that would really help you on the assignment. Okay, so that's the overview. And in addition to that, you also want to go through the PowerPoint because it gives you lots of examples that you can refer back to that are in the book. And that would be in addition to the book. So then we have your 2 functions videos, this pseudocode video, and where you can submit the pseudocode and then the assignment. So let's go ahead and look at the assignment. Basically, the assignment requires that you ask the user to enter the item's wholesale cost and the markup percentage. It should then display the item's retail price. So these are a couple of examples here. If the user enters the wholesale cost of $5 and then they enter a markup of 100%, then we would need to display $10. Another example would be if the wholesale cost was $5 and they entered the markup percentage as 50%, then the price would be $7.50. Okay, now in addition to that, we can write a program that just does that, but we're learning something new this week. The new thing would be a function. Now, we've already been using a function. We've been using the main function, but that's just your regular generic function. We are going to create a function now called calculate retail, and it will receive the wholesale cost and the markup percentage as arguments, and then return the retail price of them. It's very important that you watch the videos and you read the content so you can understand what it means by receiving the cost and the percentage, and then returns another number. Okay, in addition to that, you also want to do the input validation. You want to make sure that you're not receiving negative values. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the pseudocode, and we're going to open up a notepad or Word document, whichever you prefer. The notepad pseudocode, let's refer back to the assignment here. And again, the assignment requires that you ask the user to enter something, okay? So then you know that's going to be a C out. So we're going to, or let's just say display. We're going to say display enter the costs. Of course, you always want to use something that's helpful to the user. So you want to say something like wholesale cost or whatever. You don't just want to say costs. Okay, but I will be doing that just for this example. Okay, so we're going to ask them to enter the cost. Then we're going to accept the cost. Then we're also going to ask the user for the markup percentage here on the assignment. Ask for the markup percentage. Then we're going to accept that percentage. Okay, then we want to display the item's retail price. So let's go ahead and make some space here because we know that there's some sort of processing that needs to be done. Now I'll actually go ahead and do comments for processing. And then we'll put our display. Okay, so our display would be the item's retail price. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that. So we're going to display the item's retail cost. Okay, so what is this processing area here? What do we need to do? Okay, well, we already are receiving the wholesale cost and the markup. So somehow we need to create the retail price. So how would we do that? Well, we've already done calculations. So we're going to do something like markup is equal to the cost times and something like 50%. Now, something like that, I'm not going to give you the whole thing, but if you just multiplied cost times 0.5, let's say the cost that I entered up here would be $5. If you multiply $5 times a half, basically the markup would be $2.50. Well, that's not going to be the actual retail price. So what would you have to do in addition to that to actually get the retail price? So I'm actually going to put here more calculations. Okay, so that's that for now. And so let's go ahead and move on. So that would be the calculation or the processing part, because, and really, you don't even know what this percentage is. So if it was 50% all the time, then that would be fine. But we're actually asking for the markup percentage. So we should actually use the variable that we use here, which would be percentage, cost time percentage. Now again, we might need more calculations, but I'm not going to tell you that. This is the time for you to really think about what you're doing here. Okay, so then we have your markup, or we have, let's go ahead and remember that basically all programs, they will have, generally all programs would have input and then processing and then your output or display. So right here, we're asking for input, and then we're doing some calculations, which would be the processing, and then we have your display statement. Okay, so that's fine. And that would be sufficient for getting a wholesale cost and its markup, doing some sort of calculation that might be more than this, and then we're going to display it. Okay, well, the difference now again, we could just do this, but this chapter we're looking into functions. So it's not exactly going to be this simple, because we want to use the functions, or we want practice using functions. And of course, when you create other programs, you're going to have millions of lines or thousands of lines of code. So there will be a purpose for making functions, but at this point, we're doing just basic functions. So we actually need to add this function here, and it's going to be called calculate retail. And every time that we've been, or so far, what we've been doing is all our code has been in a main function. Let me just do main, and we have an open curly brace and then close around everything. That would be our program. But now we're doing functions, so we're going to actually do something outside of it. And I would actually recommend putting it on top so you don't have to add any extra stuff. And you'll see what I'm talking about when later on in the class. Okay, so now we're going to create a calculate retail function, and it's not going to look exactly like this. I'm just, this is pseudocode. So what do we need this function for in the first place? Well, it has to receive the cost and the markup percentage as arguments and then return. Okay, so how do we receive and then return the price? Well, that actually means that you want to do the calculation inside this function. So I have it here, or I have some of it here, but it actually, since we're going to use the function for that, we don't want it there. We want it in this function here. Well, then the question is, why wouldn't it be here? Then how do we know that it's going to be here that does the calculation and then we can display? Well, you have to call the function. And calling the function, there's a specific way of doing it. Watch the video. But when you call functions, and at this point, we actually want to send the cost and the percentage to this calculate retail. So when we call the function, we're actually going to send the cost and the percentage. Okay, and when we're calling the function, it's going to go over here to the function, and then it's going to do whatever is in the function and then return whatever it says to return, and it would be the retail price. So in this function, we're going to receive the cost and percentage. Then we're going to do our calculation, and then we're going to return the retail price. Okay, so once it's done doing everything, then it comes back here to the main function and does whatever it has to do. So at this point, it's calling, sending this, then it's going to return the retail price, and then you can finally display the retail price. So really, it's just a way of using functions is just a way of kind of sectioning off your code so you just don't have a million lines of code. And another thing that's really good about functions is that you can call it multiple times so you don't have so many lines of code repeated so many times. Kind of like how a loop kind of saves you time or saves you lines of code and time to be more efficient. And so that is pretty much it when it comes to your pseudocode. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's not. You have to remember there's also the input validation. You cannot accept negative values for the wholesale cost or the percentage. So how would you add that into your pseudocode? So, okay, the question is, when you accept the cost, how do you check that it is positive? And then after you ask for the percentage, how do you check if that is positive as well? And that will be something that you can add to your pseudocode. Now we've done it a few times already, so I'm not going to tell you. So that is it for now. And I want you to really work on this. Please remember to read your book, go through those videos, go through the PowerPoint because it's really helpful. You'll learn how to do these things. And let me know if you need help. Take care.